Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
and I am Tom.
We are Team Binge. We are here to talk about Rooster, episode 2 of what I'm assuming is one season. I don't know. Tom, should we start each episode with our own impression of a rooster? Like a coodle doodle doo or a cuckoo cha? Is that how we should start each episode?
We could. I mean, I finished the last episode with a rowdy cock-a-doodle-doo, which I plan to continue to do throughout the entirety of this podcast. But if you want me to lead with it, I'm happy to. But we got our Arrested Development reference in. So.
There you go. Everyone drink. Children drink. Okay, so this one was... I'm enjoying this show, Tom. I'll say it from the top. I'm enjoying it. I found myself laughing quite a bit through this episode. It moves so quick, and in Bill Lawrence, joke fashion, they come at you quickly. So it is difficult to catch them all. And so I actually watched this episode twice. I watched it with subtitles. I caught more things, but very much enjoying this show. And for like a Sunday night HBO show, not that heavy. Honestly, I would say it's like lighter fare than Lasso and I just don't know that we haven't gotten to the touch your heartstrings moments. It feels like episode 1 and 2 have been pretty like light and comedic. Whereas, typically these shows at the end of the pilot, they hit you with some sort of like trauma that everyone's dealing with. But this seems to be light fare and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, we've gotten some groundwork about, maybe Greg's relationship and his wife, and obviously his relationship with his daughter, and now obviously the pregnancy stuff kind of going on. Like, I think there is emotional weight there, but it's not nearly as heavy as some of the other shows that we've kind of covered, or like another Bill Lawrence joint that I'm watching now, Shrinking. Like that show hits you like almost every other episode with just something that's just devastating and really tears you apart. But this is, I think, a little bit more lighthearted, and I'm enjoying it. It's still a fun time.
Yeah, the biggest thing we have to worry about in this show is this cop keeps losing his gun, which I find a great callback. I actually, honestly, I'd watch a show about this cop. I find this actor very funny, and the things that he does and them interacting with him very funny. So I enjoyed this. But overall, did you like this one better than the pilot? Do you feel like you're in a better groove? Do you feel like you wish they would have maybe dropped 1 and 2 together?
Yeah, I know that's kind of like Apple's MO when a new show comes out. That way you get a little bit deeper into the show and get more invested as opposed to just the weekly one, especially for these shorter shows that are only half an hour, which is not a general HBO
it's
thing.
So good.
But yeah, it's nice, short and quick. Like my wife and I both had that feeling at the end of the episode where like we're still enjoying it. It's challenging to almost hear every joke when I'm trying to take notes as I'm watching. I feel like I do need to just watch the show and just soak it in the first one and then come back and take notes for the purposes of the podcast just to be able to really take it all in. So I want to say it's what I used to do with Lasso because it was more palatable in these half hour increments. But like I think both my wife and I have struggled to really get invested with these characters that I felt like maybe I did a lot quicker with other shows that Lawrence has done. Like I still think all the elements are there, but I just don't really have, I don't know, as much affinity with these characters quite yet. So I'm sure it'll get there, but it's been a little bit slower of a pull for me than others.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's just less of the emotional stakes for these characters. So, I mean, it feels just like a sitcom. It's like a funny show, 30 minutes, you get in, you get out. That being said, we're going to spend the next 3 hours talking about every moment in this show and mainly why it was funny. This opens up with Greg going in to see his daughter, Katie, and they're going to see the police about the house she burnt down. And anytime someone asks you, oh, did you run a comb through your hair? The answer is no, because if they have to ask you that question, and I am the father of a daughter, and I have had this very conversation of like, did you brush your hair? And the answer is always no.
Well, like as she responds yes, and then he like as she's walking past him, he sees the back of her head. He's like, "Oh, did you get the back of your head too?" Like,
yeah, and then inevitably you just have to go, "Oh, I like it. Looks good." Like because you can't let him leave the house with you being like, "It looks terrible."
Well, we've learned this from Ted Lasso. When a character has disheveled hair, you know they're in a rough spot, which
Right.
she does here.
Right.
And I love her open admission to no jury is going to convict her. Like, she's so excited about how she's going to get away with this.
Right, and he's like, let's not lead with that. Let's not. That's not what we should lead with when we're talking to the police. I enjoyed this police station scene. Them debating whether or not arson is a verb. The cop uses it, and he's dealing with 3 literary professors and authors, and he doesn't realize he's up against the the verb police. But it was great, and. The one thing I found a little bit off-putting, Archie I don't know. I don't like Archie. Okay, I can say that firmly. Archie has made some choices in his life that I do not appreciate as someone who believes in the institution of marriage. Mm-hmm. I don't believe,
and he's British.
And he's
not
British.
American.
Sure, right. Yeah, we all know. I'm not a loyalist. I find that he is not upset enough about this copy of Tolstoy or Toy Story. I'm sure she burned his copy of Toy Story as well.
Blu-rays, yeah.
He's not the 4K, Tom. He is not mad enough about this book being burnt. I understand, he didn't own that house. That house is the campus's house. Mm-hmm. He was just using it as a professor. That book was his. I would have been furious. And I know this is a comedy, but I feel like Katie is in the right, but I would have been really upset if you had burned my historic document.
Yeah, he makes a quick comment about there's a specific English translation in it. It was a one of a kind, which
right.
is very fair. But sure, not his house, but every single one of his possessions gone. And he makes mention, and they make a joke about he's only got one pair of trousers left, and then that's kind of the through joke throughout this. But the guy has literally nothing to his name anymore. You think about your clothes, your Lego sets, all the awesome stuff that you have in your life. He doesn't have any of it, and he's only focused on the book.
I don't think about my Lego sets at all, but I love that you threw that in there.
I just have him in my office right now, so that was the first thing I saw.
I do think it's interesting that Greg is so involved in conflict resolution, obviously for Katie, and that's kind of the theme of this, is how much does he need to be involved? Why is he so involved? But I think it's interesting that even in this moment, he's like, Archie, would you like to say something in order to protect Katie, your wife? Which leads to Archie being like, listen, it wasn't her fault. I don't think she burned the house down on purpose. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting how he's getting his sticky little fingers in everything and whether or not he's supposed to do that. And in the same way that Greg is trying to solve all of Katie's problems, he's also all of a sudden he's like, police officer, I believe the case is closed. We can move on. He's solving the case for this cop as well, which I love the cop being like, don't tell me how to do police work. I enjoyed this interaction totally.
Yeah, I like the cop too, because I feel like he was kind of a polar opposite from the first episode.
Sure.
Well, maybe not so, because he seemed more competent when he was in front of the gas station. He was buying beer.
Can't
and it was
find his pen, can't find his gun. Those are the two things we know about this guy.
Yeah, but now ending the first episode where he couldn't find his pen, then it kind of leads to him being wanting to look up on his phone whether arson is a verb, and then leaving his gun everywhere. It's funny, and I'm here for it because the actor's playing a phenomenal job here.
Yeah, he kind of looks like the guy that was in Reno 911 for years and years, but he's a toned down version. I don't remember
longer
that
shorts.
Character. Yeah, longer shorts, exactly. Although he spills coffee on Archie's trousers, which leads to Archie being trouserless, or at least covered in coffee for most of this episode.
And I do want to say, we have noted on this podcast many a time that when an actor has a cup of anything, it is 99% of the time empty, which there are multiple times in this episode where these cups are definitely empty as actors are holding on to them. But hey, we had a full cup of coffee here, so good for them.
Yeah, this was a stunt cup, as they like to call it, one actually filled with liquid. The last important thing to mention here is that Katie brings up, or I guess Archie asks her, hey, you didn't tell your dad about the baby, which is going to lead to the confrontation at the end. And also the worst apology anyone's ever made after cheating in a marriage, possibly. Where
I thought it was top notch. Yeah.
My self-awareness has allowed me to forgive you. And I mean, I could see why no jury would convict her if she would have murdered him right then.
Yeah. And then like his like phrasing of saying like, you tell your dad about the fact that she's been impregnated, like him trying to just distance himself from being involved in this process.
Almost like clinical.
Yeah. We definitely learned a lot more about Archie and who he is and how he goes about kind of treating his wife here. And I'm with you. He's got Jamie Tartness, where maybe he's going to learn, be a better person, but he seems a bit of a jerk here.
Well, see, here's my issue with the show, like from a plot standpoint. I don't know that what he's done is really redeemable. Like there's some parts of this episode where it almost feels like the show's like, hey, you can root for Archie a little bit. And I'm like, no, the premise is he, went and cheated on his wife and now has a child coming. Like, I don't feel like this marriage is going to be reconciled. And therefore, like, why are we trying to, I don't know, my forgiveness bone is not really working for Archie in the way that I think this show tries to do it a little bit. But
I think that's very fair.
I thought it was great. I love that they do the beat where Greg is like, listen, she's like not a like violent person, and then the door opens and she punches Archie in the face right in front of the cop, and then she says, "You're lucky he didn't leave his gun in here." To which the cop's like, "Oh wait, I did," and then drops it. It was the beats of that comedy were just great right in that moment.
Well, and I feel like this is another show that we're now watching that is just really poor in the gun safety department.
Weapons handling is terrible.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
Later on, he's like, I left it at the range. That's the best place to leave a gun, which is just an incredible line. The other bit I want to mention, just how funny it was, is Steve Carrell and this cop. The cop's like, listen, I was broken up once. I then toured with Limp Bizkit. And he's like, guess how many times they called me on stage? And Greg being like 17 and the cop being like, no, do you know how many times that would be? 17? That whole back and forth. Oh, it's 3. It's like anytime you're like trying to get like something that is unbelievable happens and you're like, guess how many times, and the person like does an outrageous amount and ruins your story. That's exactly what Greg did here. But I don't think purposefully. I think just because Greg is a little bit awkward.
For sure. I think I've been asked this question many a time from friends and family, and you always underestimate what you think it is to give them the ability to say a really high number.
Yeah, sure, if you're not selfish, but if you're me, I'm going over. I'm ruining that story. And then you know what I'm doing, Tom? I'm coming back with a one-upper story. That's what I'm doing. Or a two-upper, as I would have said if someone was asking me how much I was going to up a person. I would say 2. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. I've been there many a time.
Ooh, I've had too much coffee this morning, Tom.
When you want your spring break to feel like... and your kids' pool day to feel like... and your hotel bed to feel like... ooh, and room service to feel like... Because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay. This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Introducing Virtuo Up, the latest in a long line of innovation from Nespresso. It's innovation you can touch, sense, and taste in every single cup. With a 3-second start, easy open lever, and dedicated brew over ice button, it's even easier to enjoy your coffee your way. Sip for yourself. Shop Virtuo Up exclusively at Nespresso.com.
Okay, I didn't understand. We're back in Walt's office. I don't understand the Alan Ruck character. Who is he? Like, we don't get an introduction. I'm trying to read into it. What is his role? Is he like, is he higher than Walt?
I don't know. He seems to just be like a dean in the school. And I'm not a college professor. I think we had a friend of ours that works for a college that provided us some feedback on this idea of being like a writer laureate or whatever for college is an actual thing. I still don't believe it.
Residence.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if he's just a dean of one of the schools within the greater college or if he is a more higher up person. But nice to see Alan Ruck in the show because he's fantastic.
Sure. Yeah, no, he's great. I think he's had like a second life with that show about rich people that I never watched. But I was just a little bit confused because at some point Dylan goes to him for a budget thing and then Walt's cutting it and they seem to be friends. So I am excited to get more of Alan Ruck. I just didn't feel like I got a good sense of what his relationship is. They and maybe this is just like an editing thing of the second episode, and I'm assuming we're going to get much more of him. But it was fun. Because the other piece that's brought up during this is Walt's like, the board is driving this green initiative down my throat, so I have to make cuts and stuff. And once again, I would like to figure out whether or not Alan Ruck is evil and like ruining things for Walt, or whether or not he is, someone that Walt is in charge of. But because Alan Ruck even has this moment where he's like, "Hey, can someone get me a file on this student? Like she's struggling," and he seems to think she's like lazy and dumb, and the other teachers are like, "No, have some compassion." So I don't feel like in a Bill Lawrence show the characters are going to be that like cut and dry of like he is just evil. But I'm interested to see where that character goes based on this quick cut. We then have Greg and Walt having a little powwow, and once again, Greg is getting involved in Katie's life without like talking with her first.
Right.
It's not this conversation, but in like a later one, he's like, "Hey, she's not resigning. She's agreed to," but he hasn't even had that conversation with her yet. So I don't know. Is this should our parents just stay out of our professional lives? Is that the issue here?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing because like he's trying to be a parent, but now he starts like intermingling in her professional life, and these are like her decisions to make. And we get later on, I think what is really happening is Greg just doesn't want her to make the same mistakes that he's made.
Sure.
Like not owning up to certain things or running away from problems, and wants her to confront them. But I do appreciate the back and forth of like Walt being able to read these micro expressions and the undeniable energy between Dylan and Greg. And because like when Greg comes in and asks the question like, "How'd you sleep last night?" Like, whoa, that was a weird question to ask.
Right,
like,
to Dylan.
I love how Walt's perceptive and brings it up. It's fun.
Yeah, no, it's a fun back and forth where Greg is there to talk about his daughter and Walt's just like, let's dish. And then Walt using these things in order to get information. And John C. McGinley being like, "Greg, friends share secrets." And him being like, "All right, Dylan found me charming." I enjoyed all of this. And I'm glad. I was a little bit afraid that Walt and John C. McGinley would not be in the show as often. But I appreciate him retiring from Scrubs so that he could do this show because I enjoy his character. I love the bit where he literally gets Katie's resignation while they're talking, and he goes, "Wow, that's big font," which I think
turns
is
the
like
screen around.
Highlights either Walt's needing all of the font to be gigantic on his monitor, or that Katie is spiraling in such a way that she did not realize she was sending an email that's essentially yelling. I didn't know how to read it, but both ways are funny, I guess.
I would assume he's an old man that just needs a super big font on his computer.
That's fair.
That's how I read it.
That's fair. We cut to, let's talk Archie and Sonny. So, and this is kind of, I don't get a read on Sonny if we're supposed to. She keeps telling us she's funny. That's debatable. I think if you're funny, people know it. You don't necessarily have to tell them. She does have kind of like an offbeat sense of humor. We find out that she wants to keep the baby, which I don't believe Archie is necessarily on board for. But I don't know. Are we supposed to be rooting for this relationship? I mean, now that they have a child on the way, part of me is like, it's better that they stay together, but also we've broken up a marriage. I know that's complicated. I just don't know what this show is supposed to. I need a hero and a villain, Tom, and the show is working in the gray a little bit, and I don't appreciate it.
Well, and Sunny, and I like it. We're finally giving Sunny some agency where she didn't really have any in the first episode, so we're getting her perspective.
Tom, she rode that bike on her own. That was that was something.
But I'm glad that we're getting more from her. I liked her personality. I like her back and forth. She's obviously picking up that Archie is not fully on board. She's like, oh, that was an 80% response or something. I need you to go 100. So like she knows he's not really in on it, but yeah, I don't know how we're supposed to take this relationship because I'm kind of with you. Like this is a pretty big deal, and if Archie is not going to be there for her, he needs to start saying this stuff up front and not kind of playing and beating around the bush a little bit. Because she even makes mention, I think, in this conversation, or maybe it's a later one, like, I'm with you because of these reasons, but if you're not going to be the person that I need you to be and change, then I'm going to move on.
Right.
So maybe it's all just essentially setting up for her to be able to move on.
Right. And then the Archie stuff is he starts to spiral because now he has this child on the way, for sure. But then he gets a phone call that he's going to be a talking head on BBC. So I guess we're just supposed to think of him as kind of a narcissist where like these real events with people in his life, like that stuff makes him sad because he made a baby. But the fact that he's going to be on television and like get some sort of like not celebrity status, but obviously that's going to help his career. This is what he's rooting for in his life. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see where they go, but it was a roller coaster ride for Archie, certainly during this day. And then they're also giving us this view of Archie where like all of the female students love him and they're kind of infatuated with him. And he kind of like he needs that as an ego boost, I guess, as well, in a way.
Yeah, it almost reminded me of like when they get a later scene where he's telling his class that he's going to be on BBC. Like almost had like Indiana Jones vibes, where like some of his students had like "I love you" on their eyelashes or something, or his eyelids when they blinked. Like I got those vibes where he's definitely has an adoring set of fans in this class.
Right, and the last guy to leave Indy's classroom hands him an apple begrudgingly. So yeah, I know that whole classroom loved Indy. All right, so we're back to Kate and Greg. We have this like bit about Coco and a year-round Christmas store. We live in Arizona, so that doesn't make any sense to us. Why would you ever drink a hot beverage? Every beverage is hot. Just leave it outside for 10 seconds. But we do get a bit about Katie explaining, like, hey, like you didn't necessarily fight for things. You've kind of let yourself go after Mom left you 5 years ago. And for some reason, I was under the impression that marriage ended like a lot longer ago. I don't know, something in a conversation between Greg and Dylan made me think Greg had been on his own for years and years. But this conversation brings us back to it's only been 5 years that Greg... And by the way, Greg seems to be doing fine. He's a little bit socially awkward, but I don't get the... like, he's brushing his hair in the morning and not crushing Monster energy drinks. So I don't really understand the like pushback of like, hey, you also gave up. Because, he seems to be doing fine. Maybe he hasn't published in a while. I don't know.
I feel like the problem, like Greg probably has a lot of issues, but he's hiding them better potentially at this point, and we're going to dive deeper into them. But yeah, I think in the last episode they had talked, like Dylan and Greg, about him kind of feeling alone for 25 years. But this kind of tells us, okay, well, he only actually separated from his wife 5 years ago. And I like the quick little line saying that he ran away to Florida, which again I think is another brilliant little Carl Hyacin kind of call, since he's a famous kind of Florida Keys writer. So yeah, I think it's giving us more of the time frame and understanding probably how Greg has been dealing with this now, knowing he's only been not estranged, but like away from his wife for 5 years or separated.
Sure. We cut from them to once again Alan Riggs talking to Dylan, and she's like asking for more money because she's the poetry professor. There's this earlier scene where she talks to her students about like how important it is to get your work like printed and like how special that feels. And so the running storyline for her character is that she has this like printed review that's coming up. She's asking for more money to do 2. She complains about this to Walt, who she thinks is going to be on her side, and ultimately it leads to Walt letting her know, hey, because of that green initiative and how much we print and how much it just winds up getting thrown out, we have to move it to online. So like this speech Dylan gave to her students earlier about like seeing your work printed is now like, hey, we're going to see it online instead. And so she's got to like walk that back. I felt like all of this is intercut through this episode, and I just want to. The thing that hit me the most is Dylan gives a speech to Walt about like, hey, like your real friends don't see you as just the guy that has to cut budgets. Well, as soon as Walt cuts her budget and like does this to her, she's then ignoring his phone call and like won't go on walks with him because she does take it personally. So I find their like storyline, it's, you know, a like C storyline in the episode, but I did find it interesting. I just, we got less of Dylan in this one than we did in the pilot, and I'd like more of Dylan, not less of Dylan. And I'm interested to see how the Walt, Dylan, and like Alan Ruck, Riggs, whatever his name is, all works out in the show.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because when Walt does confront Dylan about this at the end, like they do a great job of like laying the groundwork here. Like Walt is clearly upset as well. Like he was the one that says like, I read all the review and all these the poetry and stuff that your class wrote, but at the grand scheme of things, like a lot of people didn't, and we have to move and we have to kind of make these funding changes. So I don't think I initially picked it up like watching this episode that Walt had cared as much kind of until the end. But yeah, I mean, times are tight and he's in an awkward position where he's still a friend, but he has a job to do, unfortunately.
Right. And I think that, like, you see that stuff from John C. McGinley in Scrubs, where he is the one that's like, listen, I'm disappointed too. I think these things have value. And I think he plays that really well at the end of this. And I think it's a little bit unfair of her to take it so personally. But also, maybe they'll work out a workaround. You know, they'll buy an old, like, I don't know, Gutenberg printing press and do it all by hand. Get those students like a little bit of elbow grease from these liberal arts college students. You know, maybe they'll write them all down with pencil. I don't know. Or maybe this plot line won't come up again. Who knows? Let's talk Greg and Katie. How on the nose did you feel it was when she points at the weather vane and is like, oh, I've never stolen the Rooster? Once again, we're a podcast for children, so we'll work around the verbiage. But this felt like, very on the nose, I guess. Very on the Rooster, you know?
Yeah, I mean, a weather vane being a rooster is a relatively common thing, but like the fact that his
I've got 4 on my house.
In this book is also called Rooster, it definitely seemed a bit on the nose, but I'm okay with it. I mean, maybe there's some interesting symbolism they'll get a little bit later, but discussing how this is like this constant yearly prank that happens, if they can hide it and the kids find it, they get a day off school or whatever it is. Fun little event. But I would argue if this is happening every year, the person that would steal the rooster on the top would be a professor, right? How are they getting this thing down? Because it didn't seem like it was an easy thing to get.
No, but someone falling off a roof will never not be funny, unless it's you falling off the roof, which, as I've gotten older, ladders have become a more precarious. When you're a kid, you're like, yeah, I just want to run up and down these things. But at the ripe old age of 85, I'm worried when I get on the first rung that I'm just going to fall.
Well, the best part of this is when he does fall, there is a bush to give you that sense of, oh, he fell into a bush, so it's perfectly okay.
Yeah, no, he's not. It definitely, yeah. He definitely
Aim for the
fell
bushes.
Pretty far. Aim for the bushes. The other piece to note is we do see they've like made Sunny rather plain looking for most of the episode, and then we finally get to see her done up going to a interview, and Greg makes the mistake of pointing it out to Katie, which bad move, Greg. Don't point that out. You got to just pretend like, oh, she's not very good looking. You're right. Like something along those lines. But we're cutting in between scenes so quickly that it was tough to keep up. But this all leads to, even though Greg does not get agreement from Katie as to like not resign, he then goes and tells Walt, like, hey, she's sticking around. Like, you don't have to let her go, which leads to Walt being like, okay, I'll work with the cop, but she has to write an apology letter, one where she claims she's like had woman problems and gone crazy, which I love Greg being like, oh, she's going to love that. And then also he's like, listen, you need to take the writer in residency role. So he's willing to do it to, I guess, save her job, which once again tells us more about Greg in terms of, but I just thought it was interesting that he immediately went to Walt and was like, hey, she agreed not to leave, even though she definitely did not.
Yeah, he's like having these conversations on her behalf without having the conversations with her. And I get it, like it's your daughter, you want to feel like you know what's best for her, but definitely the wrong way to go about this. But it's a show, so this
could have been
just
2
kinda how it is.
episodes had Katie just been like, no, I'm really resigning, and Greg's like, all right, I'm not taking the writing and residency role, and then they all leave, and it's like the end.
That's what the end of this episode kind of ends with them like hugging, saying goodbye, going in the cab. I'm like, oh, okay, this is it. We're done. He was just lying to all these other people.
Yeah.
But I also feel like we get a little bit of Walt here too, where he's got a little bit of light blackmail here, saying like, I'm not going to do this thing unless you take this role. It was interesting because that's a little bit darker side of Walt that we haven't quite seen yet.
Sure. Well, I don't know. They play it in such a way that it's more. I took it as he's a better like salesman, and he like realizes he's got a little bit of leverage. I didn't feel that this was like nefarious, but
it's nefarious. You see with that cop in the sauna later? It's nefarious. They're plotting something, bro.
Oh, he's got the gun. The cop thinks he left it somewhere else, but Walt
this is a murder mystery. You just don't know it yet.
Oh, that would be lovely. That would give me something to talk about. All right. Once again, we see the dynamic of Archie. We already talked about it, but he's going on BBC. Greg, okay, I thought this was great. Greg is at, I guess this is not like a campus diner. This is a diner near campus. I guess this isn't a cafeteria. This is a diner near campus, and we get to see our boy Tommy, who's working as a waiter, the back and forth between them, and then the subtle, like weird, not subtle, but we find that Tommy is like taking leftover food and giving it to his poor friends. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I'm assuming these are like his fraternity brothers or whatever that, just the funny little poor broke college kid thing where they're just eating leftovers. Fantastic.
Tom, what was when you think back to your college years, what was like the cheapest meal you would get away with in order to sustain yourself through the day?
I feel like it was the classic, man. It's like the ramens, all the different various flavors of ramens. I was doing quite a few of those. Okay,
that's fair. On our campus, they had a Burger King like below ground somehow, in like
underground,
like the basement Burger King, and you could get cheeseburgers for $1. And I remember going and getting like 2 cheeseburgers and sadly eating them. And I believe you joined me for some of those meals.
I definitely had some. Oh, yeah. We had some underground BK before, for sure.
Yeah. And then underground BK, I love it. That was the name of our punk rock band. And then the other thing would be going to one of those snack machines and just getting the Hostess donut, like the roll of the coconut-covered donuts, and
Gross.
trying to... I'm sure those...
Powdered sugar, bro.
Yeah. That would sustain me through the day. Yeah. Which I don't think doctors would recommend that as a meal. The friends being, because Greg gets into talking to these people where he's like, oh, I wasn't like, or there is some lacking in Katie that she gets from me, and he's like explaining it to these poor college kids, and the college kids are like, what, did you smack her around when she was a kid? Like that's their bar for being a good parent is like, did you physically abuse them? I don't know. I enjoyed this back and forth. I enjoyed them bringing Tommy and. Based on like previews, and I think we are shaping up that when Greg kind of opens up and becomes Rooster, he's going to spend more time, kind of like Old School, the old Vince Vaughn movie. Going to spend some time with these guys.
Agreed. And like we're getting them sprinkled in, so we're getting to kind of know some of their dynamic a little bit beforehand.
Sure. This leads to Dylan showing up and them having the awkward conversation about what Greg told Walt, which I enjoy these two. I don't know that this is the love interest story we're going to get. If it is, I feel really good about the show. But I enjoy Steve Carrell, and I'm blanking on this actress's name, but I'm enjoying them working together.
Yeah, their chemistry is really, really good. And like Walt says at the beginning, it's a Latin America-esque chemistry or something to that effect. I thought it was a good line.
I don't understand that joke, but I'm glad you enjoyed the.
It was like there's passion or something behind it or whatever. I can't remember what the context was when Walt said it earlier when he was using his body expression language skills. But yeah, I love these two together, and I think they play off each other well. And obviously, like whatever Greg did beforehand, Dylan isn't off-put enough. Like Dylan still likes the guy, enjoys his company, and they're still getting along, which I enjoy.
Right. And this is where they have a heart-to-heart about like how much he should get involved in helping Katie, and that Dylan tells a story about her dad kind of stepped in order to have her, spread her wings a little bit, go to a college far away, and how much that benefited her as opposed to making more of like a comfort-paced decision. And so her ultimate thing here is like, hey, just like do something that shows Katie you care, which I would argue he cares too much. He is constantly showing Katie how much he cares. And this is maybe the same advice she gave him at the end of the pilot was like, hey, just like help her out. So, I don't know what we're learning from this show other than Greg is a little bit too deep into Katie's business, but Katie seems to need it and appreciate it. We find that at the end of this episode. So
yeah, and like I think to your point, the same in the previous episode, she may not say she likes it or whatever, but like what you're doing, like she'll see that you're putting in the effort. Because same thing when he steals his rooster and then brings it over to her office. Like her first reaction is mad that like you've been here for only a week and you've already done this thing that I haven't been able to do for X amount of years. But I think at the end of the day, she does appreciate it.
Sure. This leads to Sonny and Archie going on television, has a black eye, reaches out for a makeup tutorial. I found this piece with Sonny funny, which Sonny and funny rhyming is helpful to talk about someone who is a self-proclaimed funny person. But she describes him as having a face of a narcissist a-hole that is very punchable, and I enjoyed all of this. And he's like, well, why do you like me? Which leads to some British accent work.
Yeah, good British accent work, saying that the idea of being able to make love to somebody that sounds like Paddington Bear, I thought was good.
Yeah.
And then, like, she just knows, like, Paddington Bear maybe surface level, and then he dives deeper into, like, the lore of Paddington Bear, and she doesn't recognize it, I think, was really funny, too.
Yeah, he's like, I always have a jam sandwich under my marmalade sandwich. And she's like, she passes the reference. Yeah, it was great.
I love how, like, in this whole scene, too, they needed Archie to do something with his hands, so he's vigorously taking a Tide pen to his trousers that's like a basketball-sized stain, but he's trying to take it out with a Tide pen is glorious.
I love, and we didn't touch on it, but when he keeps saying trousers after the coffee spilled on him, the cop kind of like gives the finger and is like, why does he keep saying trousers? Like, that's so funny. Yeah, it worked on me throughout the episode, that's for sure. Once again, I enjoy this back and forth. Like, I'm enjoying Sonny a bit more. I don't know that we're supposed to be rooting for this relationship and why, but I guess it's just to complicate kind of Archie as not a villain, but as someone we're, I don't know, rooting for or not. I don't know. The problem is Phil Dunster's pretty charming as an individual. We saw that even as Jamie Tart was a bit of a turd, but I'm enjoying him.
Yeah, it's just poopy.
Thank you for bringing that back. All right, this leads to Greg and Katie having a conversation where, the one line I liked from this is when he says, hey, I recognize that you're spiraling in the same way I was spiraling, and he says something like lack of game, recognizes lack of game, and that was a good line. And he's just like, don't give up like I did. Which
is where he's being more heartfelt, right? Like he's saying, like, don't make the same mistakes I did. Like I wasted 5 years, or I did X amount of time, like not being there for, your mom or whatever else it is, and just trying to have her not run away from her problems, because that's kind of the easy path here. Confront them and try to grow and be a better person because of it.
Sure. This leads to Katie being like, okay, I'll write the apology, but you have to help, which I like the idea of like an author and then a literary professor having to sit down and write an apology letter.
Yeah, like you can change that word if you want to make it worse.
yeah, he's like, if you don't want it to be great, leave that there. And through this, we find out that Greg finds out that Archie got Sunny pregnant, which leads to a slow-mo running through campus. A great shot of Steve Carrell in that moment. And then I don't know, it's just, we all lived through COVID. Well, we didn't all live through COVID, but those of us talking on this podcast lived through COVID, where these Zoom calls where like people were doing them for news stations and something happened in the background, like the kids walk in or whatever. The idea of Archie being on the BBC pantless and then Greg running in to beat him with a ladle, and the ladle being the callback to what holds the keys to this like old school motel. It was brilliant. It was brilliant that it all came together like this.
I was so confused by the mention of the ladle in the beginning, and then for having it come back for this purpose so we could just barge into this room during this call was great. I love when the camera gets knocked off or the computer or the camera, whatever, knocks off, and then strategically falls on the floor perfectly, so we still get a visual of them wrestling, and then his like crotch in his face. Like, it was all just poetry. Brilliant.
It was great. It was great. And I think at one point Archie's like, is that a ladle? Like, it was very good. The news guy being like, sir, you're on BBC. And then Katie watching it on her phone being like, get him, beat him, like rooting for it. I just know. It was all wonderful. All of that climax leads to the closing of Walt and the cop in the cold plunge in the sauna, and we see like that relationship. And I love the cops like, hey, when you were in the cold plunge, did you see my gun? And Walt being like, hey, can you make her burning the house down go away? Which I don't know how much power this cop has, but it seems to be a lot in this small town, small campus. Archie, I guess, grows up and moves in with Sunny. I didn't really understand this moment, other than once again it gives Sunny the opportunity to do something and tell him, I think I'm funny, which is great.
This isn't the most healthy of relationships. Like, this doesn't seem like this is the smartest move for Archie. Like, I get that Archie's obviously having problems with Katie at this point, but like going all in on Sunny when it doesn't seem like his heart is really there for this. Obviously, he could be the father of a child, so that changes a certain dynamic, but he seems like he's trying to make this like almost romantically work, which is probably not a great idea.
Yeah. I don't know where this is all gonna go. I do like that the roommate's like, "Who's this guy?" or like
she
this
came in
guy
hard.
again. Yeah, she came in. So that'll be fun to have Archie get his comeuppance from the roommate, and then this all ends with Katie and Greg saying goodbye. Katie like saying, "Hey, thank you for helping. Like, I'm glad you did show up," and Greg being like, "Yep, it was a great visit. I'll see you on Monday." And then the like record scratch of it ending was wonderful. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good little stinger at the end of her not getting the information, just like didn't tell him about the pregnancy. Now he's not telling his daughter, not openly communicating, which is always the fun thing in these sitcom-y type shows. If only they communicated, it would go well. Sure. But it's nowhere near as entertaining to watch if they don't talk to each other. So I don't know where he's going. Is he just going to a hotel at this point? I don't know why they made a big deal of him getting into a cab.
He's going to the hotel. He's like, drive. I'm assuming he's going to stay in the Ladle Hotel. Who knows? Maybe that'll be him finding permanent residence. He can't live in the house that Archie and Katie were in. I can tell you that much. It's burnt to the ground, Tom. But no, I honestly, I wish I could have watched the pilot and this one together. Like, I wish they would have released them together, because I do think this puts a nice bow on, like, hey, this is why Greg is staying. She's not resigning, and he's taking the writing in residence. And so, but I enjoyed this episode. I laughed quite a bit. Who the killer is, I guess we'll find out, later in the season, and who the victim is, you still think it's Walt. Yeah. Walt with a gun in the sauna. So for those of you that have joined us for this, if we missed something, if there's more to this show that we are just, completely, if there's a murder mystery in there that we're not getting, other than the rooster, that died when it came off the roof, you can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. If you would be so kind as to rate and review us, we would appreciate it. Tom, what did I miss?
Yeah, and if you are going to rate and review us on like Apple Podcast, you give us a 5-star review, we'll read your review on the pod. So if you are enjoying our shenanigans, let us know, and you can hear our dumb voices say your name. But also follow us on the socials at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, all the fun ones. As Julian said, let us know what you think of the show. Again, I'm having a good time with it, and I enjoy me a good 30-minute comedy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think everyone on this cast I enjoy quite a bit. I think they're doing a great job. And once again, this is Steve Carrell in what he does best. And I'm interested to know the show has not gotten much for advertising, and it does not feel like it's really in the zeitgeist, but I would hope that as it plays out, and maybe as more episodes come out and people can binge them, they'll catch on. It is a little bit of a strange, like, Game of Thrones, HBO Sunday prestige fill-in, but maybe this time of year everyone just loves a short comedy. But I did recently
hear it promoted on Conan O'Brien's podcast.
Oh, nice.
They gave it a couple nods. So I think it's getting out there. I think they just didn't do a whole lot of like pre-marketing. They're just doing it now that it's available and people can start digesting it. They're maybe hopefully putting a little more into it.
Yeah, a lot of times when something is dumped like this, you're kind of like, oh, it must not have turned out how they wanted it to. But, there's no fatal flaws in this. I'm enjoying it. It's funny. It's worth a laugh. So, for Team Binge, I have been Julian.
And cock-a-doodle-doo. I've been Tom. Till next week, everybody.
Perfect.